We're going to go ahead and get started. I apologize, I'm a little intimidated by the stage. Although I'm a teacher, I'm not used to being on stage. So here we go. We are the Project Search team from Bolingbrook. I'm a teacher through Plainfield School District.
I am an employment specialist through Trinity Services.
So my name is Megan again, and if anyone in the room, my oldest daughter was just recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, so if you want to connect with that after, and I'm also a gestational surrogate having a baby for another family, so just as a personal side note.
My name is Jessica Wisniewski. As I said before, I'm the Project Search Skills Instructor and an employment specialist out of Trinity Services, primarily handling transition-based cases. And Trinity Services is actually looking to start other Project Search sites. If anybody's interested and is in a 30-mile radius from New Lenox, please see me.
Awesome. So here's just our agenda for today. We're going to briefly talk about Project Search. If some of you are familiar with the program, then really what we want to talk about is the fastest growing trends in employment and how we can prepare our students by designing activities to get them ready in those work-based learning experiences for actual employment. Also touch on soft skills because they're just as important as those hard work training skills that students need, and then try to help all of you build some connections. A lot of what was echoed by our keynote speaker and in the last session that she just presented in here. So thank you for joining us, and we're excited. So first we're going to start off with this activity, and just if you can scan this with your phone, it's a QR code, and it just asks, our question to you is, what was your first job, paid employment that you earned? We're just hoping for some different answers to kind of see. I'll give you another minute and then I'll pull up kind of what your answers are. Good, we've got some answers. So that's my answer. I worked at Polar Bear Ice Cream. It's kind of like Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen, somebody else, babysitter, Raging Waves, waiter at a retirement
Another
community.
cone shop, okay.
Yeah. Window washer, cashier at Ace, Tropical Snow, pharmacy tech, babysitter, Michael's, McDonald's, mini golf course,
grocery,
record store, waitress, Domino's. This is a lot of the answers, thank you for sharing, that we kind of expected to see. Selling concessions,
lifeguard, candy store, another lifeguard, family video. Throwback.
Oh, I missed those. Bagger at Dominic's, movie theater, fantastic. So just as you and I entered the workforce, so are our students. And so a lot of the positions that you've mentioned are what our students are currently, or actually our last student just got a job, so yay. Yes. So they're working in a lot of these entry-level positions. Again, thank you for participating. We are just really inspired by the Wicked movies, so that's kind of the theme of our presentation and colors, if you couldn't tell. So our philosophy is just that every student is unlimited and employable. Here's some pictures from our experience. These are all pictures from our current or former students that we've worked with, our rock stars. So what we are and who we do. You want to start us off?
Yeah, so Project Search is a 1 school year long intensive work training unpaid internship experience that partners with a school district, a community resource provider, nonprofit agency, and a host site. Typically it is in a healthcare setting, but it can be anywhere that just has a lot of opportunities to host many interns. We call our students interns. It's just the Project Search jargon. And it is designed for people who have completed their high school requirements. It is a post-secondary transition program. Typically, transportation is not provided because in a realistic work environment, the intern or a student would have to provide their own transportation to their work site. They don't get bused to, working at Domino's or Culver's or wherever. I saw the list. And the goal is obtaining competitive community integrated employment.
And so next year, we are in our 3rd year currently. Next year will be our 4th year running the program. It existed pre-COVID, but then obviously with the huge pandemic, volunteers were not allowed in the hospital. So they sort of had to pivot and go on a hiatus for a couple of years. But we are the new team that's back. We're excited to be there. About half of our students next year will come straight from high school. So they technically just graduated. And then about the other half will come from other transition programs that are in our school district. Plainfield is a very large school district. We have 31 schools. 4 high schools are alternative schools. So we have a lot of students that are applying, and we're really trying to build the program. We actually have to turn students away this year, which
is a great problem to have, but also hopefully our district is able to provide those students with other transition activities so that they can be employed.
Yeah, so all of our internship experiences within UChicago Medicine, AdventHealth, Bolingbrook Hospital are realistic work opportunities that they are able to easily transition out of when they complete the program and obtain competitive community integrated employment. And we have our list here. We've actually had 5 interns who are hired at the host site, although that's not an expectation, but this is teaching them, and they're almost kind of working full-time hours, about 30 hours a week doing this. And we do the 4-hour work shift model. The other hours that they're there are doing curriculum, which is also intensive work-based learning as well. But we have had people who are custodians, even using the big floor scrubber, Zamboni kind of looking thing. Cafeteria and dietary services, including food prep, delivery, cleaning and lobby attendant work, tray pass. We even have somebody who does Starbucks typically once a year, the stocking the entire hospital and doing the expiration checks, the order fulfillment of doing the admission kits, as well as maintenance, which can be anything from installing refrigerators to welding to being on the roof and repairing that. So these are all work opportunities that will be able to get them placed and successful in the community.
And with Project Search, like Jessica mentioned, a functional curriculum is provided by the program. There is an initial cost, like setup fee, but throughout the year, the school district just pays my salary and benefits as an employee of the school district, and we partner straight with the adult agency and the host site, as well as DRS. Department of Rehabilitation Services that partners with our program. So we really tailor our internships and listen to that student voice piece. So here's our student from this year. His name was Andrew. He came in straight from high school and really wanted to become a plumber. He was working at Amazon part-time, actually full-time over the summer because he wasn't going to school, but he really wanted to build his skill set so that he could enter that apprenticeship. So we really wanted to give him the best experience that he could in order to achieve that goal. So he did work with our maintenance department down in the basement. They go all over. So here he's actually fixing a faucet and water pressure and testing water temperature with the maintenance men to give him, again, that real life experience that is geared towards his future employment. Our students learn to locate, use, and be familiar with a various amount of supplies, not only cleaning supplies, but different supplies that are used in the hospital. And we really just try to expand on their responsibilities. So they may be given a checklist that has only a few different tasks that they're starting their internship with. But then as they sort of prove themselves and show more interest and take that initiative, we definitely add more tasks just to really challenge them and build them and keep them busy. Because what ends up happening is sometimes they finish all those tasks and they really need to finish that work shift. They need more tasks. So like Jessica said, the Project Search Conference that we attended last summer really pushed for the 4-hour work model. Previously, we had students had been in their internship for 2 hours. We would all meet together for lunch and have lunch together, and then they would go work for 2 hours, which was a nice break for them. And we ate lunch at 11 a.m. instead of 12:30, but it's okay. My stomach can be hungry as long as, they're getting a better experience, because really, in order to push their stamina and prepare them for the workforce, they need to be working for longer periods of time without a break. So we do a short check-in in the morning. They're off to work for 4 hours. And then they have, some time to use the bathroom and eat lunch. And then we do a classroom reflection and lesson in our classroom.
Yeah, we had found that in the years prior when we didn't have this 4-hour work shift, that when our students would get placed in the community and when they were working, they were requesting their employers for a break after 2 hours of work. And it didn't dawn on us to switch to this 4-hour work shift until the Project Search Conference, and we're really grateful for it. It's gone off really well, and it builds their stamina, which is when you get a job in the community, it will likely be about 4 hours or 5 hours long. So they have to be able to work to that amount of hours.
Another important caveat of Project Search is those employment meetings that we have. So they're similar to the circles model if you were with the last speaker, but we really get feedback from the internship mentor that they're paired with in the hospital, their parents. The student leads this meeting to talk about not only their independent living, but their employment and education possible goals that they have. And it's a nice check-in. The parents are really curious about where they're working, what they're doing. We try to take as many pictures as we can. In a setting like a hospital, you have to be careful with patients and families and things in the backgrounds. But really, we've expanded this year to really get videos of them working, because that helps them see exactly what they're doing
It also helps employers because if they don't interview the best, I can just show the video of them working and it speaks for themselves. So
Yeah. Do you want to talk about?
yeah, and then another part of our mindset is that no labor is considered unskilled labor, and we're going to go into kind of the minutia that we see an issue with some transition programs that we've run into, that I've run into, servicing 30 miles outside of New Lenox and just around the area. But I think that the concept of no labor is unskilled labor, that anything that we teach them and anything that they learn, they can grow and expand upon in their own life and their work life is a wonderful mindset to have.
Mm-hmm. So here's just an example of checklist that we use. The one on the left with dining services, our student really benefited from a checklist that they could check things off. So that might help, but it is a lot of tasks, so that might be overwhelming to some of our students. Another one of our students was working the EVS, that's basically the custodial team at the hospital. And so each day he had a different checklist of different areas in the hospital he would clean. So we provided pictures so that if he was confused or didn't know where to go, he would use that. Down below, one of our students was really struggling to restock the linen cart. And so I printed photos of like, this is too much, this is too little, this is just the right amount. It kind of reminds me of like Goldilocks of, you need to really grasp that skill of stocking the correct amount so that it's not overwhelming or doesn't cause a mess. And then just another checklist from our student who was working up in the med-surg unit. So that's a unit where there's many patients that are staying for maybe testing overnight or things. And he had various tasks and he needed reminders before he went to work, because really the goal is that our students are working independently, although they're paired and they've become familiar with hospital staff who model that work-appropriate behavior, teach them those social skills. The goal is that our students are not bothering them or interrupting them because they are very busy, especially in healthcare. So that checklist, if it's very detailed and very specific of what they need to do, where they need to go, a priority list of tasks that they should complete. And of course, we go over this with our mentors and our staff of, their needs may change from one year to another, to update these so that our students are supported. And this is the evaluation tool that we use. So our IEP goals are tied to their performance of how they're performing various tasks. Emotional, it used to say handle stress, but we changed the wording to emotional regulation because one of our students was really unregulated. So we needed to better regulate and help them learn those skills. So the evaluation tool is something we go over in the beginning of the year with our students and our mentors, our hospital staff. But then really our lessons are designed around those so that their students' scores. I use a Google form to take data right when I'm on site with the student and then reference it back once a week to review that with students so that they know kind of what they need to work on for the next area. And then depending on their department, there may be different tasks that they're working on specifically in like nutrition or EVS. So then we took data to add, based off their current internship that they're in. I don't think we said this before, but our internships are 10 weeks long. So in the beginning of the school year in August, we'll do a 2-week orientation where we're really getting to know the students. We're learning their strengths and weaknesses. We're learning about their interests of, where they would like to work after the experience, or maybe they're just very unsure. And so then we can place them accurately in an internship to know that they're supported. There are some departments in the hospital that are very, very supportive of our students, and some departments where the student may be working by themselves. And so we need that student to have a little more independence. So we want to place them appropriately. Then they start working, it's kind of like by Labor Day, they start working. And that's when we really rely on Trinity to provide us with more staff to help coach them really intensely in the beginning because it's brand new, and like we said, that 4-hour work shift is not something that our transition programs that they're coming from are doing. So it is very challenging in the beginning. And then they're in an internship for about 10 weeks. And then we do a 1-week orientation where we're wrapping up, kind of really talking about what they enjoy and getting prepared for the next one. If they really impress their department, they ask for letters of recommendation. They write thank you cards. We do some field trips in those weeks to go to IKEA is a local furniture store to talk about furnishing an apartment. We've gone to tour Trinities. We went to Asilla, their horse ranch, day programs. Various living. They have an apartments we're trying to get into. We go on a bowling field trip for more socialization and order. So we really use those as, bonding, because sitting in a classroom for 8 hours, is not as enjoyable to them as working is. So then they start their next internship. And so then they finish the whole year with 3 internships. That's how the program is designed. All right. So now we're going to pivot to just fastest growing trends. So what positions in the community, and this was from Illinois Workforce Demand, so that QR code you can scan and see the whole document. But we really wanted to focus we should be modeling our transition activities based on the jobs that our students could possibly get, right? So this particular graphic, it is on your handout. I apologize, it's very small. But we wanted to make sure that you see this. And we realize that some communities, especially rural, may have different job opportunities for students. So I don't want to dismiss or offend or not take that into consideration, because this is based off our experience. So we are in the Chicagoland-ish area, and we have a lot of experience or employment options for our students.
Yes. Yeah, so we during our work training at Project Search, we often match the skills to kind of what they're doing and their interests, and kind of just going off of what is needed. So if somebody says they want to come in and they want to be a dishwasher, or somebody says they want to come in and they want to be a cashier, we will find opportunities within the hospital to make that happen, to build those skill sets. For example, we might have to build up their stamina standing for long periods of time. If they want to be a fast food worker, they're going to have to sanitize tables, collect trash, they're going to have to sweep, stock, do food prep. So we will find opportunities within the hospital to make this happen. If it's a position that we don't have an internship yet, we will still find transferable skills to make that happen as well, so they can learn those skills and then transfer them out when they get their position in the community.
And even transition programs. So we realize that not every district can have a project search, but in your transition programs, and even high school, as I'm learning, because I hadn't considered high school experiences before coming this morning, but how can you put in these skills so that our students can be better prepared? Garbage collection, sweeping, stocking, food prep, standing for long periods of time, attention to detail, those different things. How can you incorporate those skills that are transferable into your current activities to better prepare our students? So the next kind of position that our students with a high school diploma or GED are really applying for is like stocker and order filler and cashier. We realize that cashier positions are limited. Honestly, they won't let our students cashier at the hospital.
Wish they would.
We're going to, continue to have those conversations. But if students, and some of our students aren't interested or they don't have the skill set to be a cashier. And so that's okay. We're going to focus on really the customer service and other types of skills, which we may need to sort of build, what's it called when you customized employment when you go on a job. So, but really recognizing numbers, text, organizing. So we have an internship where students are filling the stock rooms in all of the floors of the hospital. So the big giant warehouse, the basement, they're grabbing items to then bring up to, and that's a lot of inventory. That's a lot of reading numbers and figuring out if there's so many in a box, how many boxes do I need to bring up and things like that. So it said labor and material movers. I didn't understand what that meant. Jessica educated me that that's pushing carts and bagging, which I don't want to assume or encourage you to assume that all of our students can just get a job at Jewel or a local grocery store, because some of them are capable and can do more. So we shouldn't really rely on those basic, jobs that our students with disabilities are typically in, because especially if it's not something the student is interested in.
However, though, most grocery stores, you have to start doing this. So it is kind of like a way to work your way up. Yeah. So that's another caveat to that, though, as well.
These photos are from one of our transition programs, collects food. It's called Bags of Hope. And it started with a teacher that, noticed some of our students are going home on the weekend and don't have food. So they get backpacks, and they stuff backpacks with food and send kids home from the school district with that. So they've actually transitioned the warehouse into one of our classrooms in our transition program, so that our students are practicing that bagging and making sure that they have all the items and they're not, squishing. You need to learn that you don't squish the bread and, things like those skills that they can use later in life if they choose to move on and apply for jobs in grocery stores. And then retail salespeople. So these are other jobs that our students are, applying for and able to do. This is one of our students, our rock stars. Megan from this year was in Project Search, and she was very particular and meticulous, and we really had to move her towards, complete the task, move on, and complete it and standing for a long period of time. That was difficult for her, but now that's a photo of her. She works at Goodwill part-time, so we're really proud of the progress she's made. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and then we also focus on those soft skills in the workplace. We found that our students that do possess those soft skills tend to get placed quicker. They tend to have an easier time when they are on the job and they are working independently. And that is, of course, like working at an appropriate rate, so not being super slow on the job, problem-solving skills. So if you finish your tasks, kind of learning and teaching, okay, what am I going to do next? I can look around and see this needs to be done. Of course, those customer service skills, taking direction and feedback and not being sensitive to that. Of course, the stamina we've talked about, appropriate work conversations, kind of we're working as a member of a team, kind of being an affable person to work with. And we just kind of have those, when we're doing curriculum, a lot of our is based on kind of developing those soft skills.
So if we're talking to our mentor in our department about how is Johnny doing, and they may say, well, they showed up late and then they had to take a bathroom break, and then they actually made a mistake. And some of our mentors, we have had to do a lot of PD of, it is appropriate. If an employee was not completing their checklist or not completing a task correctly, you would approach them and tell them how to fix it. We really want you to do that with our students. And that's why the interview process that we have, actually it's coming up in 2 weeks to interview our class for next year, is really to see if they will act appropriately to redirection. We never want a student to scream or have a temper tantrum, things like that in a workplace. That just proves they don't have the skills for our program specifically. Maybe they need more training in that transition program to build up those skills. Another one I wanted to hit was remain in designated areas. So we had a student this year that would just sort of wander and not be where they're supposed to be, which is a problem. And they eventually got a job, and that continued to be a problem on the job. So that is an employable skill, is if you're expected to be in a designated area and complete tasks, you need to stay there. You can't be leaving and out of the building. So, all right. So I use the Department of Labor soft skills to sort of highlight some of those soft skills, social skills that our students need. And this is not only people with disabilities, but without. In order to maintain employment, you have to kind of possess these skills. And we realize that some of our students might start off really needing a lot of instruction, but it should grow as they progress through a transition program or throughout the school year. It is really amazing for us. We push them really hard to see their development from the beginning of the school year in August to February, March, when they're applying for jobs, and how far they've come. It's really amazing. So like that networking skills, some of our students prefer not to talk to people, but we've really told them, everyone says good morning to you in a hospital. So you need to be able to smile, wave, acknowledge someone. If someone is talking to you, you need to acknowledge them back. And responding appropriately to others. So if a customer asks you something, if your boss asks you something, you need to respond appropriately. And having that enthusiasm. We're always reminding them to have a positive attitude and teaching them that they sometimes just have to fake it, right? Just like we do. That's, if they're very literal, especially if they're on the spectrum, they have a hard time understanding that, but just really maintaining that positive attitude to complete the task. Even though the garbage is gross, you will be asked to change it, and you need to just do it. Put on your gloves. Sorry, it stinks for that moment. Just do it, and get over it. So
there's aspects of every job that we don't like and we still have to do. So we kind of just tell them sorry, unless it's there's a medical reason for it. We're going to have to go into it.
Yeah. That professionalism. So I would recommend you considering this in your transition internship type of work-based learning programs is some sort of uniform. So our students wear the polo that all of the volunteers in the hospital wear. They can wear khaki, black, gray, just professional work pants and non-slip black shoes. Mainly because those are the shoes that they will use on a job later, but also we want to make sure they're safe in their internship. But really dressing to impress. So we talk about, you work hard, so you need to shower and you need to smell nice and look nice. When you come to, one of our students needed a lot of help with rolling. He has a lot of cats, so he would lint roll, and really folding a collar was a new skill for some of our students. They do wear a badge so that they can be identified as an employee of the hospital. And another professionalism that we've worked on is really having them use their cell phones. So I, as a teacher, don't want to give out my personal cell phone number, but I have a Google Voice. I would recommend. It's a free, free option. If you have a Google email address, you can set up a phone number. And so I'm able to text and call my students using that phone number. We do encourage them to keep their phone when they're in their workspace because that's likely they will have it on the job. And if there's an absolute emergency, they can call us. But
Or if we can't find them, some of them are really mobile, like the ones in maintenance, like
purposely,
where are you? And we can check on you.
It's good that they're not there, and the students that we can't find. We call them too, I guess I should say. But it does teach them a lot of skills of they can't listen to music when they're working. They need to keep their phone in their pocket. They should have it with them, but they really need to keep it, and it shouldn't be going off during work, just like in the real workplace. All right, taking initiative is really difficult for our students, approaching and taking that, look around, what should you do? Should you wipe this table, sweep, change the garbage, find something to do to keep yourself busy. We work on that a lot. All right, more social skills. All right, communication. So greeting others, like I said, that was difficult for some of our students. Noticing when others are busy, that was something we worked on this year. So again, I don't want my students to go up to nurses. Of course, they can always approach them and ask questions of how to do something. But if they look busy, we need to really let them do their job and, save people and keep people safe. So that's something we've been working on, asking questions, being part of a team, responding appropriately when told to do something. So some of our students have their preferred tasks and non-preferred tasks, but when you're on a job, you are going to always have tasks you don't like. So really teaching them and modeling that. So that's what we use, that classroom portion. So we have about an hour time for lessons. And of course, we would recommend that any transition program have some sort of program. Of course, like I said, Project Search has a list of all these different lessons that we can use. Some are on money management, some are a lot are on teamwork. And some of them are designed for students that need a lot more instruction than others, but really we have to just be responsive to the group of students we have next year. So I am kind of concerned personally because we'll have 13 students and some of them, I'm thinking and brainstorming ways that we can break them up and do a lot of partner work and a lot of communication and maybe stations because our students need different instruction based off something that we hear. So again, if we hear something from a mentor of something that's going on, we want to address that and talk to our students in order to mitigate that so it doesn't become a problem. Because our internships, our partners could, say that they no longer want to work with us, that our students are more of a burdensome than helpful, and that's not something we want. So in order to maintain those relationships, both in the hospital and outside, if our students are working in different internships, we need to make sure that we're supporting them with their concerns and addressing those.
Yeah, so kind of going into the essentials that we have for our transition program, of course, the mindset that all students or everybody is employable, no matter how severe their needs are or anything like that. We want to just make sure that all of them are set up to obtain competitive community integrated employment. And we do activities that gauge the student's skill set initially when we're getting to know them. We kind of reject the online questionnaires. We don't find those effective at all because it'll come up like, you should be an artist. And it's like, oh, no.
That's not a job.
So we like to just get to know them, get to know their skill set, get to know their interests as well. We build a rapport with them, and that we do that kind of via team building and icebreakers at first. And we get them into the community because that shows, like we were astounded, me and Megan, this year to realize that none of them knew how to give a tip, like at a restaurant. So we had a whole lesson on that and proper etiquette when you're eating out in public. Because that's something that you're going to take to the workforce as well and just being in the community. And we always mimic tasks of realistic employment, giving honest feedback to students and families alike. Having conversations with parents, because sometimes parents have pretty lofty ambitions, and just reminding them that, your child is very young. 18 through 22, that's young. And I don't think, my first job was working at Goodwill. So, just kind of bringing it back down of like, you can't be so lofty initially and immediately expect that they're going to, go into medical school or something like that. These are entry-level positions. They haven't had a job before. So that can wait. We just got to get them employed first and get that going off the ground. We don't discourage college. In fact, one of our interns is actually a job coach through my agency now, one of our former interns. But initially he got his entry-level position, and then we hired him on after a while because he showed great promise and is now in social services. So we want to keep that up, but you do need to get employment on the resume first. That's first and foremost.
And just encouraging students throughout your program to be open to various job opportunities. So we had a student last year come into our program and tell us she wanted a sit-down job. And so we're like, you're going to be on your feet for 4 hours. So hope you got some good gym shoes. But, and really understanding, what does she mean? What task does she enjoy? But really, when it came down to it, that came from her previous transition program. What she really enjoyed was shredding and doing clerical tasks. And those tasks are just not part of the jobs like that were listed by the Illinois workforce demand of those tasks are not going to prepare them for real work. And it's not to say that eventually she cannot become a secretary or some sort of receptionist. That is not off the table, but really we're focused on that entry level position to gain employment, get some, earn some money. That's always a incentive, and really build your resume. So and eventually she was hired at Jewel, and now she's stocking at Jewel.
She got promotion at her job. Yes, she's doing great. Yeah.
And then that student independence. So really students need to be independent on the job to make decisions on their own. And we really push for them to be more independent at home. And that might mean having conversations with parents about, give them chores, give them responsibilities to build up so that they are
make sure they pack their own lunch is a big thing. Yeah.
Packing their own lunch. Yeah. Make them clean a toilet, do their own laundry.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about that 4-hour work shift, and maybe that's not a possibility for you today. But as I was just talking to another person, maybe 2 hours work of a student working, if you can build a relationship with a local hardware store where they can stock for 2 hours a week, that's better than nothing, right? So start small. If that's something that you're working up to, that 4-hour work shift is incredible, is, what the goal is. But if you can start with an hour and a half or 2 hours or 2 days a week for 2 hours, how can you build those experiences for your students so that they can improve those skills better to be more prepared? And we really want our students to make connections with one another. We've realized that not many of them have friends or have a social circle. And so we really want to help them build that community for themselves, because it is strange for them that they're leaving school, right? They don't realize how much free time they're going to have. Most of them are applying for part-time jobs in our program, so they're going to have a lot more free time, like I said. So how will you fill your time? And we really discourage it from being video games or watching TV. We want them to be active and happy and healthy, and
rec programs and the like. We recommend a lot of those to our students because we want them active and not atrophying when they're not working.
So the last one is just really, we encourage our students to take risks and try new things. So one of our students last year came to us on the spectrum, and he was very nervous about staying clean. He wanted to wear gloves all the time, which in a hospital that was okay, that was fine, and that's something that could be done in various settings. But eventually, then he got a job at Portillo's, which is a local hot dog stand.
Okay, so I went to go get his IPE signed because his case was closing successfully. And he's like, Miss Jessica, guess what? Tell Miss Megan I cleaned up like fecal matter. And I was like, no way, Michael, like you? So it was like the best thing. And like he was so happy and so proud of himself because he overcame his fear, and I think he's getting paid to do his work. So it was well worth it.
That's a huge incentive.
Yes, yeah.
But really pushing them to, we understand you're really concerned about your germs, or you want to work by yourself. Some of our students are very hesitant to work, but really pushing them through. Transition programs are designed to not only expose them to different jobs, but teach those skills. So really pushing them and encouraging them to, and we realize that is a delicate statement, and that might not be true for every student. So, but really pushing them.
So coming as a person who works with adult services and as an employment specialist in the primary transition employment specialist at my agency, and servicing a wide geographic area, I have noticed a lot of ineffective work tasks that I have seen transition programs implement, and it always breaks my heart when I have to put them on a resume because and oftentimes the client, now they're aging out, so now they're the client, is expecting to find positions like this. And this is kind of what we've seen that we don't think is effective and not really jobs in the community that they can get entry level. And one of the things that is the bane of my existence is the shredding. It is so demoralizing just to have people just shred papers day in, day out. I mean, I shred once a year. I mean, I don't know how many times you guys shred in your job, but it's just not a position that we really see that is enough to have somebody do in a rotation. And then the other thing going into that is the filing and the stuffing envelopes and the data entry. Data entry is a real position that you get with often a bachelor's degree or more. That is something that is a position that you have to continuously work at. So, I mean, not to say that they can't be an office worker, but again, these are not just entry-level positions. Most reception works, coming from my experience, getting people placed in the community, you need to have an associate's or a bachelor's degree nowadays. Things have changed, times have changed, and these are kind of just minutia that we see. Oftentimes, we often see people doing the arts and crafts as well. These are hobbies, like making the jewelry, the coloring. It's just busy work. If they're doing motions with dexterity, you could have them do sanitization, stocking, other things than those motions of things that are hobbies or not really jobs.
And we realize you're coming from all over the state. So if there is a very large shredding manufacturing plant in your area, teach your kids how to shred, because then they can get a job there. It's just not been our experience. When we use Indeed.com to save and apply for jobs in the community, if you type in shredding, nothing comes up. Like it's office work, like Jessica said, it's required for, you need an associate's or something like that. So, if this has been our experience, and if that's something that's worked in your community, then go for it. But we just really want to focus on jobs that our students can transfer and use to get a job.
Yes. The other thing that we've noticed, and again, I know more rural communities might have issues finding CRPs, but we don't really seem that mock job applications and writing resumes. I mean, obviously they need to come with a resume, but we don't see the extensive training on that as effective, because often when they transition out and are connected, hopefully with the CRP to help find them a job, the CRP will do that. The employment specialist, the job developer, will do the applications, will do the resume writing for them. And, kind of like going over about job experiences, this is all something that they will be connected with the local agency later on. And again, I don't know how every region is in Illinois, but typically in our experiences, hopefully you're getting them connected with an adult agency. Hopefully you're inviting those adult agencies to their exiting out IEP so that they can be connected and set up to work with supported employment. And we just don't often see that they mirror real work experiences, especially when they will get supportive employment. The other thing that we've noticed is like interview practice. We do it a very specific way where we bring in somebody typically from my agency that they don't know often, because when they do interview prep with each other or they do interview prep with one of us, it's like they're peers, they're the teachers they see every day. So it's not as effective as it would be if a stranger comes in and kind of mocks a realistic interview as well.
And really the career exploration that ignores student preferences. So if some of our students come in with unrealistic career goals, like a video game designer or something like that, then we do recognize that that's something they're really interested in. Maybe they can work at Best Buy or a local GameStop, I think just closed by us, but a place selling video games, or maybe at a resale, Disc Replay has like used games that they sell. So finding something that they're interested in, but kind of pivoting to that entry-level position that is open, and available in the community.
I always tell them, they don't know who this is, but I always say Tarantino got to start working at a video store. They don't know who that is, but we know who that is. So, but it's, something like that.
So again, building partnerships. Project Search, allowed us to meet and work together. And we realize why our students and our program has been so successful is because of the partnership that we have. And so the ICTW does have some really good resources. I've linked these YouTube videos about doing some community resource mapping and just establishing those work training agreements. So this specifically is for transition programs that are trying to build those partnerships with local businesses and get their students out in the community and working. I would recommend checking those out. One phrase that we use with our businesses is, what work can our students do to alleviate labor from your workers? So what are tasks that your workers complete that maybe aren't as much of a priority for the business, but they would help your workers out? So something we've noticed, we're always trying to look to expand our internships in the hospital, and especially those that are related to potential jobs. So we talked to the EVS, again, is the custodial services, and we talked to her like we're going to have 13 students, and this year we had 6. So we really got to build and come up with some new internships because we're going to have so many students. And so we talked to her and said, what ideas do you have? There is a job where a worker grabs all the garbage from all the departments, brings it down to the basement, and puts it in the dumpster. And one of our former students was actually hired to do that job. So we know that it's a realistic job. I said, can we do that for you? Then your workers don't have to do it if our students do it. And again, we're going to have a job coach with them and really teach them how to do it. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. Also, I think you guys should do, what did she call it? Inventory, like stocking, cleaning supplies in different cabinets and closets in the hospital. And we're like, yeah, absolutely. So that's 2 right there that we're hopefully going to.
She named, and my sister's first job was event setup. And
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of convention centers around the Joliet area, which would be wonderful to get somebody placed in for sure.
So, and that happens all year round, right? It's not something, one of our challenges that I have for you today is what is an internship, or how can you get your students into the community next year if you're starting small? But we're building those relationships and having those conversations all year round. It isn't just for April, May when you're preparing for the next school year. It's all year round. And then having those frequent communication with businesses to make sure that they're supported. If our students are rude, or if they're making mistakes, or if the job coach that's with them isn't helping them, we need to be in communication with those businesses to find out how we can keep this relationship and make it better. Because if they currently agree to have 2 students 1 hour a week, maybe next year, if we really prove ourselves and have a great connection, maybe next year they'll let us come 2 days a week, or for 2 hours instead of 1 hour. We really want to build those connections and support those community members. And some of them need disability training, right? Last year it was really disheartening when we got an email that one of our students, who was on the spectrum, but he scripted a lot to himself, and sometimes it was under his breath, and sometimes it was more like yelling. And he was vacuuming, kind of doing his own thing, doing his job, but kind of yelling, and it frightened some of the hospital staff. And we got an email that the kid with Tourette's needs to be watched.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you. It's heartbreaking. Yes. But really, we learned that they need some disability training. And that's not to say we're going to tell everyone that sees this student that, they're on the spectrum, but we're really educating them about different disabilities and how to, if they would have just said hey, you all right?
Yeah.
He would have stopped.
He would have been like, oh, I'm fine.
Been fine.
Snap back into it. Yeah.
But that really kind of, proved to us. So like I said, transition programs should be a time for that career exploration. So the students are learning about their jobs, but also building that work training. And if we have students that are in a transition program for 4 years, it really should start off with getting to know those different jobs, getting exposed, learning their strengths and weaknesses, and then pushing them out into the community. Some programs, not ours specifically in Plainfield, but some other programs, their transition programs aren't even full days. They're only morning shifts, which I thought was pretty interesting, but it's something to consider. All right, so again, partnering with local businesses. So we realized that this might take time. This is not easy. It's a lot of schmoozing and convincing of people to work with you and your students. So really think about what businesses support your school district or are connected to your school district in one way, and what connections do your parents have. So like we were talking earlier, do you have any of your students, parents that own local businesses that would be willing to partner? Kind of build your circle to find out who you have in your corner and then go out from there. I lead a small women's group in church, and 2 ladies in my group are connected they're actually elected to the township. So I was like, oh, need to tap into that. So I talked to them. Another member on the township is a local restaurant owner, and so I called her right away. And we've gotten 3 of our students dishwash, hosting, busing, and in a local restaurant, which is right down the street in our downtown. It's awesome. So that's something that I did this year that was really great, and it's gone great. Hopefully we can expand for next year. And again, take that student interest in mind. So where do your students shop? Where do they spend their money? Where do they like to go to fast food? Or if there's a local gaming shop or Goodwill that they frequent, where do they like to go that maybe they would be interested in working? We realize there's a lot of needs. So job coaches, our parapros in my school district, function as the job coaches. one thing we've done with Trinity is have them give PD and training to those job coaches so that they can learn not to do jobs for students or not over-prompt
No
them.
unnecessary breaks, things like that.
Those things. So we've really utilized that partnership that we have to build PD for the staff that are working with our students in the transition program.
Transportation's always a barrier. However, our county luckily expanded the dial ride option, Will County Dial Ride. Shout out to Colin Phillips if you guys are located within Will County. I know there's also Ride DuPage if you guys are in a neighboring county. So really look into those transit options. I know like Romeoville has a ride around Romeoville where you can go and get rides around Romeoville and 5 miles out of Romeoville. So really look into those options because not every student has reliable transportation, but it's always a barrier.
And we realize that support from admin, of course, is necessary. So it is going to take time to go and contact your local businesses to partner with, and whose responsibility is that? I teach all day, so that we realize that is an issue. But in order to make these experiences better for our students and improve, literally change their life, if as we build these programs, it changes their life and makes them employable. That's huge, One thing I'm going to do better next year is connect with the Chamber of Commerce. That was an idea I got from the last session of attending a meeting and really just explaining what our program is and who we are, and our students need jobs. So what jobs are open, who's willing to, maybe build those partnerships and those internships for our students in the transition program. Food service in your building. So my school district uses Airmark for the food service. So what experiences can our students get working in food service in the building? Parents, and it's always best practice to have the students out of the building, but if that's a place to start next year, that might be the best place to start for you. It just takes one person, one adult, to be willing to work with our students and really encourage them and help them learn those job skills. But again, authentic experiences happen outside of the school building. They might start inside, but those happen really outside.
Yeah, and then we've noticed a few consequences of when students come to us ill-prepared, or when they come on my caseload ill-prepared as well, and that is the irregular emotional regulation. They often have high expectations of kind of what they want. Like, for example, the sit-down job example, the low stamina is a huge concept, and an inability to maintain employment. So they might get placed, but if the behavior of wandering is not curbed or the stamina issue is not curbed, they might lose that position. Just overall being not prepared for the workforce. But also a lot of these tasks that our philosophy is by not challenging them, it kind of is a closed-minded philosophy and ableist to kind of have that old mindset. Just have the expectation that they're going to be employable, they're going to get employed no matter what it takes, and you're going to get them there.
Yeah. And hearing, when you met with the transition program and a staff member said, well, that's all they can do.
Yeah, I had said, maybe we want to move away from shredding and kind of go with this. Well, sometimes that's all they can do, Jessica. And I was like, what? No way, that's a lie. So that's always disheartening. But my agency has had people who are deafblind work in the community. So, these are tasks that we can build to any disability or anybody, no matter how challenging or, whatever the case may be.
Is about you?
Yeah, okay, so I really recommend, of course I'm biased, but to partner with the local community resource provider. If it's Trinity Services, if you're in 30 miles from New Lenox, just gonna shamelessly plug myself, but every agency is probably very wonderful and helpful. I know I got to know quite a few of them from different CRPs, and we're all here for the same reason. But it's really important to kind of connect with them because that is that adult service agency, and not only with job development, but they can connect you with housing support or day program support, therapeutic support. We have a horse ranch randomly, so there's just things that they can do to be connected with that. And then I often go over to, I'm popping the mic. I go over to the different feeder schools in Plainfield and talk to the job coaches and the educators kind of about what the services we can provide and what exiting out might look like once they come over to adult services. We're all about agency tours. We tour all the local agencies, and even for day programs, New Lenox is very far from Plainfield, where Trinity's day programs are all in. So I'll go to other day programs. Just recently, we went to Cornerstone and learned about their day program because that's more accessible to the students in Plainfield. And it's not about, competition or anything like that. We all just want to provide the best services for the person, the right services. Canvassing local businesses, just sometimes taking a day and driving and knocking door to door. Hey, you're willing to work with us? This is what we can offer. This is what we can provide. connecting with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm lucky that my step-uncle is on the Chamber of Commerce of a local near Plainfield, which is great. So again, like Megan said, use your connections if you know anybody, and then utilize DRS. DRS is great, and they have a lot of options. Don't be afraid of the jargon. Just kind of ask to be explained in layman's terms, and they'll be able to help and provide you with transportation options or whatever you might need, agency options. They're great.
Yeah, we're almost done. All right, so this is my challenge to you, is to connect with your local CRP, your community resource provider in your area. Meet as a transition team. This is something I need to help my transition teams in my school district do. So this is a personal thing and discuss the current work training tasks. So what are our students currently doing, and how can we improve those experiences and make it better for next year? Increase the work training shifts. So again, build that stamina so they're completing tasks for a longer period of time. And start partnering with local businesses to get your students in the community. So maybe you only find one, and that's okay, right? That's better than what you have now. Just partner with a local business so that you can get your students in the community.
It's a start.
I will say that my school district provides transportation. We have buses that bus our students from the transition program to the businesses. Some, dependent on the location, we do use public transportation because they do travel training and things, but that's more of in Joliet, like the more of a city kind of area. So that's how we've heard of other school districts that have contracts with local taxi companies and things like that. So I know that is an option. And Joy Burgess is, oh my goodness, I didn't put her email address. So she is our regional person for Project Search. So we could talk all day long about all of this. So please stop us or feel free to come and visit. If anyone wants to come and tour our site, we can walk you around and show you at the hospital that we work at. It's in Bolingbrook, Illinois, but Joy Burgess would be the person to contact to start a project search in your area. And if you're close by, Trinity is willing to work with you. So you've already got that under control. So
Okay, I think we have time for a few questions.
We just like to brag about our students. Brooke she didn't even need our program. She was so amazing. She works full time in the hospital. She gets bragged on by the CEO. She's amazing. Papa works at Walmart. There's Michael. He works at Portillo's now. And Megan's at Goodwill. I showed you her. Silvio's one of our most recent students that got hired at the hospital. And that's kind of the best part for us, selfishly, because we still get to see them and check in on them and, sometimes have lunch with them and things. And Jerry's a gym custodian. So we just like to brag on how cool it is that, they're working. So here's some resources. But like I said, I'll upload this presentation so that you can share it back. But email us, call us, whatever.
Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful.